Alright, today I'll be reviewing Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. This is a game I heard was the best entry point into the Shin Megami Tensei series. When it comes to Atlas, I did play Persona 1, Persona 3, the 4th one and the 5th one, pretty much everything except the second game, so I do have some experience with their RPGs, but this would be my first time really playing a Shin Megami Tensei game, and man, I will tell you, it is very different from the Persona series. As a heads up, there will be spoilers, so if you don't like to be spoiled, now is your chance to pause that video, leave it, and play it yourself. Alright, let's dive into it. In SMT3, you play as a high school kid who plans on meeting his teacher with his friends at a very not normal hospital. And while you're there, you bump into this guy with probably the largest widow's peak I've ever seen in fiction. And that's saying something because I have a large widow's peak too. The peak man, he's an asshole who just trauma dumps on you for no reason on how the world always makes the same mistakes. And he decides that, you know what, he just wants to kill you for some reason, just to be a dick about it. But luckily your teacher arrives and actually de-escalates the situation, saves your life. After that, you meet your teacher again on the rooftop and she explains an event called the Conception, which is some kind of rebirth of the world, or you can call it the end of the world. It doesn't really matter to me because everything just gets blown to bits when it comes to Tokyo. It just becomes post-apocalyptic Tokyo. After this event happens, there's this creepy little demon couple where there's an old granny and this little kid standing next to you. The little kid puts some kind of bug inside of you, and then you become a demon right after that. And from there, your objective, it's kind of vague. It's getting a reason, creating a reason to change the world, right, or lead it. And also, short-term wise, the objective is finding the teacher. I've definitely played games before where the objective is, to stop the enemy from taking over the world. But I've never played a game where the world just ends right in the beginning, so that was definitely something different. It had me very curious just to see what was going to happen next, so I was definitely hooked just on the beginning of the game. Before I do get more into the story aspect, though, I do want to discuss what I believe is the core of the whole game, which is going to be the gameplay. So the gameplay of this game, it consists of traveling around the world on foot and battling demons in turn-based combat. Kind of made me think a little bit of Pokemon because the demons you fight, they're weak to some elements and they're also resistant to some. If you hit an enemy's weakness, you'll get another turn, but if they're resistant to it, you lose a turn. And that's just me keeping it as simple as possible. There's much more complexity to the weaknesses, the critical hits, and the strengths, and way more so if we talk about the Kagutsuchi mechanic. But I'm not going to touch bases on that just because all of that stuff, I don't even understand that. All of that went over my head. But if you do love a lot of complex systems in a battle, then you'll probably like the gameplay because there is a lot of different ways that the demons will react depending on the Kagutsuchi and things like that, and just a lot of things to understand with the weaknesses and the strengths. I'll definitely tell you one thing, it will give you a challenge, as this is one of the few RPGs where I consistently would have to use the buffs and the debuff skills in battle. Consistently. I'm sure you Shin Megami Tensei 3 fans know exactly the first boss that taught me to use that, because this game has a very popular spike in difficulty with a specific boss in the game. It's not like Pokemon where you can just brute strength your way through the whole game. You actually have to think every now and then, use debuffs and buffs. In Shin Megami Tensei 3's gameplay, I would say my favorite part was the system of recruiting demons and fusing them. In order to recruit a demon, you would negotiate with them, usually with currency, sometimes an item, then answering some random philosophical question that they might have. What makes this a bit funny is that some of the demons, they're just going to ask you for so many things, then sometimes they'll just dip, leaving you with absolutely nothing. but once you do recruit them, you can put them in your party for battle, or you could fuse them. Fusing demons, it's always something I loved, even in the Persona series, it's always very fun. You simply just grab 2 demons, hit that fuse button, and you're able to check out what new demon can be made, and also checking out the new abilities that they may have. It's always a treat too when it's a demon that you've never seen before, because this game definitely has some very fun, unique designs for the demons. It's also a really great way to strengthen your party, especially when you get stuck against a boss fight and you don't want to do the traditional way of grinding where you're just battling people one by one until you level up, so it definitely saves you that grinding time too. Now I'm going to discuss what I believe is the worst part of the gameplay, by far my least favorite, which is the exploration of the game. I can't pull any punches at all when I say this, but moving around on foot in this game, it is a nightmare. It is god-awful. You take 2 steps navigating a dungeon, you're in a battle. You're trying to solve that complicated puzzle, you're in another battle. You want to reach that healing point or that save point because you're near death, you are in a battle. You're trying to understand where to go after that really vague cutscene didn't really tell you where to go, you are in a battle. You just finished a very tough hard-fought battle, congratulations, you're in another battle. You see the common denominator in all of this? It's that shitty encounter rate. I don't know what the heck the devs were thinking when making the odds of that rate, but man, this was just really cruel to play through. What's funny about this too is that when I look back on those confusing dungeons with the multiple pathways or those long puzzles, with my least favorite by far being the 3 cubes and the Kagutsuchi Tower, that was horrible. But when I look back on those puzzles, they weren't the easiest, but what made them so difficult was the encounter rate. There were countless times where I would try to remember what to do for the next puzzle, but after being thrown into like 3 freaking battles, my memory would just time out. Sometimes this game, it just feels like one big battle against your attention span. But on the bright side, you at least have items and certain demons that could reduce the encounter rate if your level is high, which will make things much more bearable. But being thrown into a battle frequently, it definitely makes this game feel like hell to play. And last but not least, we have the characters. I'm going to be reviewing 4 of them, and I will not be talking about Hijiri or Fudomimi because they both were just kind of there for me and just kind of died randomly in the middle of the game, so I won't be talking about them. To start off, I'm going to talk about Yuko Takao. Yuko is the first person to talk to you and is your high school teacher in the game. Early on, she stops Peak Man from killing you, and then on a rooftop explains to you how she wants to leave the world after it's destroyed and wants you by her side. On first impression, I thought, this is great, we have a really strong teacher stereotype, so I was very hyped up when she was introduced, and boy, I was wrong though. I was wrong of how her character would play out. After the world ends, you find her in a tower, unconscious and being used as an energy supply for Peak Man. She then gets possessed by a goddess that tells her she is not worthy of her power, so she cannot even wield it. Later, you meet her at a park where she's looking for an item to help control that god's power. And guess what? She makes us get the item for her. After we get that item for her, the goddess still rejects her and just clowns her, telling her that she's not worthy of it regardless. After that, she makes one last attempt to stop Peak Man, the guy that tried to murder you really early in the game. She tries to stop him from harnessing his own god's power, but somehow she gets sacrificed and ends up creating Peak Man's god. Essentially, she takes the ultimate L in this game and she gets absolutely nothing accomplished, which makes her by far the most disappointing character in the game. I give her a 3 out of 10. Next is Hikawa, also known as Peak Man. Peak Man is supposed to be some big shot in the communications industry who just so happens to be a cult leader as well. As I mentioned earlier in the video, He does meet you in the hospital early on, and he does try to kill you, but your teacher saves you from him. Later on, you do find out that right after the world ends, that he's the one who's responsible for starting this entire conception event. So he's actually the mastermind that started the entire plot. What's really strange about Hikawa's character is he rarely is actually in the game. I can barely remember him really being in the game, but when he was on screen, his presence was really strong. His cutscenes were really fun to watch, especially when he summons his own god. I always love that scene. He did feel consistent and reminded me of a very typical rule the world type of villain stereotype. So I thought that was pretty cool. But my issue was the reason that he did everything in the first place. No matter how many times I Googled or searched up on Wikipedia or anything to find out his reason, it just seemed way too vague to me. The way he would say it is he was trying to create a world of stillness. But no matter how many times I looked into that, I don't know what the hell he was talking about. There were like no details on what his world was supposed to be. So that was my main gripe with him, is I just had no clue what his master plan even was in the first place. I give him a 4 out of 10. Next up is Chiaki Tachibana. Chiaki is one of your 2 classmates that you meet in the beginning of the game. At first, she's just a normal schoolgirl talking to you about her future career plans, but after the conception occurs, she goes through multiple changes in the game. At first, she starts off being in a panic, and she's just frightened of what the world has become. And her goal at first is just to find your classmate and to find your teacher. Somehow without including you, which never made sense to me. To this day, I do not understand why your friends split up as soon as they find you. I thought that made 0 sense. It's stupid, but for some reason, she looks for them without you. You do meet her again in the Mantra headquarters, and she seems like a different person at this point. She's a bit jaded to the world at this point and tells you that she wants to create a new one where the strong and the powerful rule. This change completely threw me off, and it had me intrigued in the game. It gets more interesting too as she tries to collect a large amount of Magatsui from Yoyogi Park, and she runs into this dangerous mannequin named Sakahagi, who cut her arm off, causing her to run away. In desperation, Chiaki runs to the top of the Mantra headquarters because she senses an entity's power there. That entity is Gozu Tenno. It turns out Gozu Tenno and Chiaki have the same belief in the strong ruling the world. So Gozu, he infuses his spirit to her, which massively increases her strength, and it gives her another funny looking arm. Then after that comes my favorite stretch in the game, which takes place in Mifunashiro. Over here, Chiaki plans to steal all of the Magatsui from the mannequin's homeland. As you make your way there, you encounter demons of her army, and you spot many dead and injured mannequins along the way, so it just really paints that picture of just a lot of crazy violent things going on. Finally, you have a showdown between Fudomimi, who is the mannequin in the game who has a unique ability of foresight, versus Chiaki. After talking with both of them in a cutscene, you're given an option to aid Chiaki or to stop her. Regardless of what option you choose, poor Fudomimi, that guy, he just dies regardless, and Chiaki still gets the Magatsui anyway. I like this particular stretch in the game just because it shows how far gone Chiaki is from how she started in the beginning. That innocent little classmate who talked about having a school career just suddenly turns into this mass murderer who will do anything for power. She is a solid character in my opinion who goes through a lot of changes in the game, and that's what makes her a very fun character to look at. I give her a 6 out of 10. The last character to review is Isamu Nita. Isamu is your other classmate who's looking for your teacher with you at the start of the game. He comes off as a laid-back, jokester type of character who doesn't take himself too seriously. And what I like about him a lot is he feels the most like a friend in the game. After the conception happens, you find him getting beat up by a demon named Thor for trespassing the Mantra's HQ. Since you're also someone who trespassed the Mantra's HQ, you also become imprisoned with him. The difference is, though, is that you win back your freedom, but poor Isamu, he's just left in there to rot. He does give you the task of saving Yuko, which is your teacher, because he can't do anything at the moment, so he's just stuck in there rotting. When the Mantra is defeated later in the game, Isamu escapes and he informs you that he's heading for a place called Kabukicho Prison to look for the unique mannequin that I mentioned earlier named Furomimi. He wants to meet him in order to use his foresight ability to locate his teacher, Yuko. Unfortunately, Izumi gets locked up again, and when you reach him this time, he's not happy with you. He's essentially guilting you, talking about how you're always late, and being tired of being rescued, he resolves to only depend on himself going forward. He also reveals to you that he studied a terminal to the Amala network, which leads you to its own vortex world where you're able to collect Magatsui. He teleports to that network on a quest to get stronger. The next time you run into Isamu, his design drastically changes as his body is now covered in all of these slimy, creepy faces, which probably comes from the Magatsui that he absorbed. He tells you of how being imprisoned really showed how isolated and alone he was and how nobody notices him in the world. Then he tells you of the new world that he wants to create, which is one where everyone will be the center of their own world. I guess in a way you could say that's multiple worlds where everyone gets to be their own main character. Then later on, there comes a very big event where your buddy Hijiri, he gets kidnapped by Isamu and literally gets sacrificed in order to summon his own god, which he names Noah. When reaching the end of the game, you're going through a few bosses, and I encountered by far my least favorite boss. That I completed, and I want to put big emphasis on completed because there were some bosses that I quit and just skipped. Cough, cough, trumpeter. But this fight with Noah, to be honest, it was just terrible. It was awful. It took me forever to realize that I had to use a specific move type when he used a specific move type. In fact, I didn't even figure that out on my own. I just Googled it after losing so many times. Then he has some very BS type of move that just drains way too much of your HP and your MP. So it just makes the fight drag, and I am not lying when I say this fight absolutely drags on forever. But regardless of his unbearable boss fight, Isamu is probably the most memorable character in the game for me. His descent into madness had pretty decent build-up, so his change didn't seem left field at all. And I just enjoyed really watching him go from this laid-back, good kid to some cynical but very determined character. Plus, the world that he wanted to create, I felt it made the most sense when looking back on the events that led up to it. I give him a 5.5 out of 10. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, it's a game that starts off very strong in the beginning with its plot of the conception. It had me very hooked at first. The music is not my taste really, but it's doable, and the combat is complex and fun at times. The fusion is always an enjoyable thing in the game. Unfortunately though, this game is strongly held back due to its lack of cutscenes and the absurd amount of slow-paced exploration. For a majority of the game, I just felt like I was wasting my time, and some of the boss fights, man, they were just very random with the difficulty spikes that dragged on forever. Some of the characters were interesting and had great potential, but every single one of them were just not built up or shown enough in the game, which is why all of their ratings were really low. It felt like I was just finding who was the least worst character instead of the best. In the end, I hope to never play this game again in all honesty, and I would not recommend this to anybody. This game is just too much of a hassle to play. For any of those Persona fans that were told to play a real SMT game, you could just ignore those people and go back to your Persona 5 because you're not missing out on anything playing SMT 3. If there would be one culprit that would explain why this game is so bad, it's It's going to be 2 words. I give SMT3 a 3 out of 10. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Every now and then I do like to stream on Twitch. My username is Roundglasses Boy. I'll make sure to leave that in the description if you're ever interested in checking it out. Thank you and have yourself a good one.